Oka Shinnosuke is the 2025 Asian All-Around Champion. Felix Dolci repeated to become the Pan-American All-Around Champion, and we preview the 2025 USA Gymnastics Men's National Qualifier. For those new here, I'm Kensley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics. This is episode 75, where I recap the Asian Championships, the Pan-American Championships, and preview the USA Gymnastics Men's National Qualifier. So starting off with the Asian Championships took place in South Korea earlier this month, where Japan won the team title 4 points over China, who took silver, 8 points ahead of Kazakhstan, who won bronze. Oka Shinnosuke won the all-around title with a massive 85.131. And the hilarious and interesting thing about Shinnosuke is that his worst score came from vault. I think he actually tied with pommel horse, but this is like historically not the case for most all-arounders, that vault is tied for their lowest score. And it's so interesting that he is able to put up such a high number without having a massive vault. His teammate Hasegawa Choshi took second in the all-around with an 83.965, and then the 2024 champ Carlos Yulo took bronze with an 83.632. All event finals were won by different athletes from different nations, which just makes for a really beautiful and interesting story to tell. So Carlos Yulo, the Olympic champion, won floor with a 14.6. He's a little bit down in difficulty from what we're seeing from the very, very top athletes in the country or in the world, coming with 6'1", 6'2", and he did a 5'8" here at this championships. I do think he has room to upgrade before World Championships, so I'll be interested in watching that space as well. 2024 Olympic silver medalist Nariman Kurbanov won pommel horse with a 14.933, and he performed a 6'2" difficulty here, which is now the highest in the world. Launching Yu of China won still rings with a 14.933. Mahdi Al-Fadi of Iran won vault with a 14.5 average, although I will say that that's maybe not the most exciting thing that happened for him over the course of these championships. He ended up getting a new vault named after him, the Yurchenko full and double back, which was awarded a 5.6 difficulty, and then he performed a Tsuk double pike for his second vault. Oka Shinnosuke won parallel bars with a 14.7, and Tang Chahong of Taipei won high bar with a 15.233. And his 6.5 D score here tied his own personal record, which is also currently leading the world. And he has such a cool routine with the talk half to Luca and open. I think it's just such a cool combination. And he's really patient with the bar, which is something that you don't necessarily see often with high bars, so I would definitely recommend that you check his routine out on YouTube. Now, moving on to the Pan American Championships, there was some drama from the start in terms of equipment. So William Amard of Canada, who wasn't actually competing at this competition, posted a video from the training hall showing that the rings had snapped in half, literally the wooden ring, just completely broken in half, which is something I have to be honest, I have never seen before. I was really shocked to see this happen. So at this championships, they were partnering with a new equipment brand called Canis that is an FIG partner. And some athletes alleged that with this brand, not only did the sill rings snap in half, which of course we have the video evidence for, but some athletes have also alleged that the vault broke and that the parallel bars collapsed on a coach, and we don't have any video evidence that has surfaced. So again, we'll just say that that is some allegations from some of the athletes. Now, I think where this is really important is that this is not the first championships in the PAGU Pan American region that have had major issues. So in 2021, if you remember, at the Olympic qualifying championships, they were competing on a vault held down by sandbags. And then this was an Olympic qualifying event. This shouldn't happen at any time, but certainly not at an event of that caliber. And then at the 2024 PAC Rim Championships, there was a rain delay for an inside competition. And this was really stark. We ended up getting videos from several people who were there of rain coming in, leaking through the roof. The organizers were sitting under tents inside the venue. They were having to mop up water from the events with like pieces of foam. Several athletes said that they didn't feel safe. One Australian athlete wrote in the comments on a reel that I had posted on Instagram about this that they landed in a puddle after they vaulted. So there's another issue. And then there was the 2024 Pan American Championships. And this was the competition where athletes had sun in their eyes, and you specifically see this with some of the women's vaults where they're like literally holding their hands over their eyes before they vault into the sun. There were instances of athletes competing on high bar in a major windstorm, and this is because the venue, like I said, was half outside, so like you're being exposed to all the elements. There was one video of a Canadian gymnast who was having to dodge a bird running down the vault. Like, it's insane to even, I cannot believe I even have to say these words. And then now with 2025 at the Pan American Championships with the equipment failures, I will say we did not get any reports of any of the women's equipment breaking. There were just reports from some of the men's equipment breaking. And I don't know whose job it is to fix this. I don't know if this is PAGU's job or the FIG, but athlete safety like has to come first. And some athletes have actually publicly stated that they have stopped going to meets in these regions because the conditions are so poor. And this is the most important thing. Like, gymnastics is already such a difficult and dangerous sport, and we can't have athletes wondering if the equipment or is going to like hold up, or is there going to be rain coming in, and am I going to be landing vaults in the middle of puddles, or like am I going to have to dodge birds? Like, this is crazy talk. I cannot believe that we are having to say this, and I don't know what it's going to take to fix this. I don't know if it's going to be reports to the FIG. I don't know if, we're going to say quote unquote the major players, like let's say for the Pac Rim, like, do you have Australia and Japan and USA and Canada say like, nope, we're not coming anymore? Like, there's been too much of a history of things not going right. Like, I have never, ever heard of a competition at the European Championships or the Asian Championships happening like this. So if you know how to fix this, if you know where reports need to go, I am happy to pass that information along, because I actually have had some athletes contact me and ask where they can file reports about this, because this is really important, and it's not a laughing matter, and this has to be fixed. So there's my rant about that. In terms of the gymnastics aspects of what happened at the Pan American Championships, the U.S. was over 5 points in the win over the Canadians, who were about 7 points ahead of Argentina, who won bronze. I would say this is a pretty good showing for Argentina in particular. I would say the most common placement on the podium is some combination of USA, Canada, and Brazil. And they kind of all like switch places over the years. So for Argentina to beat Brazil and end up on the podium, I think was quite important for their program. I do want to put into perspective how the scores from the Pan American Championships ranked internationally. Now, of course, you cannot directly compare in a perfect way scores from the European Championships to the Asian Championships to the Pan American Championships, because you're dealing with different equipment, different time zones, different judges, like, right, all sorts of different things. But just to sort of give you an idea, the US won gold at the Pan American Championships with a 238.8, which would not alone have been good enough for fourth place at the Asian Championships. And then based on these three major championships, they actually wouldn't have even made like a team final. Now, the US did not send their strongest team by far. You didn't have people like Frederick Richard on the team, or Brody Malone, or things of that nature. But just to give you sort of the rank of where things are right now, Japan, it would be in the lead with a 252.993. Then China with a 248.262. Then Great Britain in third with a 247.538. then Switzerland with a 2:45.727, then Italy with a 2:42.826, and sixth is Germany with a 2:42.595, and seventh is Kazakhstan with a 2:42.95. South Korea is in eighth with a 2:40.093, and then rounding out the final four, I only went to place 12th, was USA with a 2:38.8, France with a 2:38.461, Netherlands with a 2:38.329, and Hungary with a 2:38.262. So I think, what we're seeing is probably for that winning score, again, we're looking into the 250 range, and probably in the podium, probably somewhere around 248, 249, if not at a 250 as well. So just to give you an idea, looking forward to next year when the World Championships will have a team competition. Now, at the Pan American Championships, Felix Dolci of Canada won gold in the all-around with an 80.150, ahead of Joshua Carnes of the US, who won silver, and Diego Suarez of Brazil, who won bronze. Felix had a great competition. He actually also took gold on vault, parallel bars, and high bar, so a really, really good competition for him. Jun Iway of the US scored another 14 on floor internationally, which I think is really going to help his bid toward making a world championship team. The way I'm kind of looking at the world championships team is I think more or less 4 to 5 of the 6 spots I see as relatively locked. Of course, you never know what's going to happen in terms of injury or performance at the national championships. Someone could have a really off day. But I'm wondering if that fifth or sixth spot might go to a floor worker, and Jun Iway is certainly one on my radar for that. Brandon Ding, who has been pretty solid all season, took gold on pommel horse. He downgraded a bit here at this competition, but will hopefully be able to add in some difficulty at the national championships. And then for still rings, Daniel Villafane of Argentina took gold on rings with a 13.7. Now, there were a lot of NCAA medalists here. A few others to highlight include Josh Carnes of Penn State, who was, for me, a surprise silver on pommel horse. He also nabbed a silver on high bar. Cisco Velez of OU got silver on still rings, and then Evgeny Semenyuk of Michigan and Canada won bronze on parallel bar and high bar. Moving on to some Frederick Richard updates. If you haven't been following along his social media, he has been traveling the globe. He went to China and Japan and is now in Uganda doing some social media with the group that he raised money for with his world backflip record. We now believe that Fred Richards' backflip record has actually already been broken by a YouTuber named Maddie Dubs, who did 1,234 in 24 hours. So based on his YouTube, we do think that has been broken, but of course we'll wait and see what the official Guinness World Record is going to state. Now, for the final part of this podcast is the USA Gymnastics Qualifier, which is happening this coming weekend, Friday, June 27th and Saturday, June 28th. So this is the final qualifier to the National Gymnastics Championship, which is happening in Louisiana later this year. So based on the USA Gymnastics release, you might think that it was happening at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Training Center because that's the picture that they used, but it is not. So I want to make sure that that's super clear, that that is not confusing for anyone. This competition, which has historically taken place at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center, is taking place at the Air Force Academy, which is a bit farther north in Colorado Springs. So just for clarification, go to the Air Force Academy, not the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. Now, that being said, the U.S. Air Force Academy is still on a little bit of a higher lockdown. They're on a higher tier of security right now. You can go watch this competition, but you need to pre-register if you want to go in person, and you do need to submit some background information. So I will have an article on my website about how you can do that, and I also believe it is under the USA Gymnastics preview as well. So based on the list of those who are pre-qualified to the National Gymnastics Championship, I believe there are 35 total. So the list that USA Gymnastics has on their document for the national championships lists 34 athletes, but I was able to confirm that Tyler Shimizu was able to nab one of those spots from the NCAA championships. So there were 2 available spots to come from the all-around at the NCAA championships, and those would have been awarded to Isaiah Drake of Navy and Eric Upton of Air Force. Both of those athletes have retired and turned it down, so it was a little bit unclear based on the wording if they were going to reallocate those spots or not. It seems that they did, and so the remaining people who were eligible, it was just Tyler Shimizu, because Gatterud, also of Cal, is not a U.S. citizen, so he was not eligible for that spot. Now, of the people who are pre-qualified, 3 for sure not competing. Cameron Bach has retired. He is now one of the athlete reps. Riley Luce posted about just needing a pretty significant surgery, so I feel pretty confident he's going to be out. And then Curran Phillips has also retired. There are 2 more I'm a little bit unsure of, like Paul Judah hasn't really stated what his intentions are for this year. I think it's possible he won't compete at the national championships. I also won't be surprised if he does show up. So he's one name I'm watching. And then I think Shane Wiskus recently went on a podcast with Sam Oldham and was talking about just now getting into the gym and just now starting to be able to do circles. So I'm unsure if he is going to be able to compete at those championships. So of the 48 spots available, I think there are at least 32 of those 48 spots that have been taken. There may be another wiggle room there, so potentially up to 18-ish spots are available to qualify via petition or via this national qualifier. Now, the spots, based on my understanding and reading of the USA Gymnastics documents, are going to be filled by petition first. And then the remaining spots after that, half of them are going to go to all-around rankings and half of them are going to go to the points program. And then the USA Gymnastics document states, okay, if there's an odd number of remaining spots, so if there's like 15 spots remaining, then 8 spots are going to go to all around and then 7 spots would go to the points program, which more or less helps favor people who are good on like 2 or 3 individual events. So at this competition, the bonus program is going to be in use. They released the bonus program in May to the public, and after talking to a couple of people in the community, it seems like maybe the athletes got it a little bit earlier in May, but still in May. I'm a little confused as to why it took them so long to create this bonus program. My understanding is it was supposed to be done in like March. So releasing it in May gives athletes effectively little to no incentive to apply changes to this year, at least at the qualifier. Like it was essentially released like a bit over a month before the national qualifier and just 3 months before nationals. So like from my perspective, effectively, it's just going to be rewarding those who are already doing the high difficulty that they're looking for, not necessarily those who could do more. So like, for example, now Asher Hong's already qualified, so he's not going to be one of those at the qualifier, but Asher's been doing a Risei Guang for years now, and I don't think he's going to stop doing the Risei Guang, whether there's a bonus system or not. And so he is going to get an entire extra point in difficulty buffer for a vault that he already competes. And I just am not sure at this point that for him, it's going to incentivize more difficulty in that area. So I'm trying to keep an open mind about how it's going to play out this year, but just based on my feeling, based on understanding, based on talking to coaches, they feel like the bonus system was released way too late and that it's not going to have the incentive and effect this year that maybe the leadership in the men's program was hoping. Now, this Olympic cycle is going to be a longer Olympic cycle than what they had for the 2024 Olympic cycle, of course, because the 2020/2021 Olympic cycle went 5 years. The Paris Olympic cycle was 3 years. So they do have 4 years here. So potentially it's going to it's going to have more effect, I think, maybe next year, but I'm not sure it's gonna affect so much this year, but we'll wait and see. For those of you who are a little bit confused about the men's bonus system, you are not alone. I actually had a high level gymnast from another country reach out to me and say, hey, like, I'm really interested in knowing what this is about, but I don't understand it. And I think that person is probably not alone. So the bonus system, I should go back actually a little bit further. So when Brett McClure took the helm in 2017 as the high performance director, he was rightfully so deeply concerned about the massive difficulty gap that the US had to the major programs like China, Russia, and Japan. And he was pushing the US athletes to increase their difficulty. But what was happening was athletes were trying to incorporate more difficulty at competitions like the national championships or Winter Cup, which in the US is the Winter National Championships. And some of the athletes were performing poorly because they were trying upgrades maybe before they were ready. What this ended up meaning was some of the US top athletes were actually losing their spot on national team, which meant they were losing their national team funding and they were losing their health insurance because in the US, there is no national health insurance system. If you don't have a job, for the most part, you don't have health insurance. So this was devastating because they were losing their access to their income and their health insurance all at the same time from trying these upgrades. So basically, after this happened for a couple of years, it became increasingly difficult to convince athletes to put in these upgrades because the athletes were smart. They were looking around being like, hey man, I just need to have my funding and my health insurance to survive. Like, I'm not going to try these upgrades. And so there was like this deep tension between the leadership of the programs being like, hey, we have to have these upgrades to medal. And if we medal, we're going to get more funding. And the athletes being like, yeah, you want me to put these upgrades in, but I've seen people do this and I've seen them lose their spot on national team and their health insurance. And like, I'm not really willing to do that, especially if I continue doing my safe routines, I'm still going to make national team and potentially be on a world championship or Olympic team anyway. So in 2021, Kevin Tan and Syke Caesar, both of whom are Olympians, spearheaded the US men's bonus program, which was officially put in place. I believe the very first competition was the 2022 Winter Cup. And then, of course, in 2024, the US men won their first Olympic team medal in 16 years, and they credited the bonus system for their success. So, as I mentioned earlier, in this Olympic cycle, the bonus system it's coming out later than was initially intended, but it's still a little bit earlier than it was the last Olympic cycle just because of how short that Olympic cycle was. So again, I'm not convinced it's going to have a great effect this year. I could be wrong. But I do think that there are a couple edge cases where I think it may have some determining effect. So one of those is between like floor superstars Chase Mondi and Cam Nelson. So both of these athletes are going to be at the national qualifier trying to make it to nationals. And I actually think that both of them have a decent shot at what I'm looking at as, again, that kind of final spot for the world championships. So Chase Mondi, incredible floor. He's so clean. He's so dynamic. Beat Cam at NCAAs on execution. But Cam has significantly more difficulty that he can add. For those of you not super familiar, like Cam Nelson's the one that can compete 2 triple backs in the same routine. And if he competes his full difficulty, he could add up to 8/10 from the bonus system into his difficulty. So it could be a case here where maybe both of them don't move on to the national championships, which I think would be a huge shame and maybe is not going to happen. But this is a case where Cam Nelson already has that difficulty that already built in that he could throw, and he's going to be hugely rewarded should he choose to do that at the national qualifier. Now, looking overall at the preview of the US national qualifier, I'm going to have a little bit of a spicy take that may be a little controversial. I think potentially this year, because it's an individual world championships, that they may be taking too many all-arounders. I was actually a little bit surprised that they were giving the quote-unquote additional spot should there be an uneven amount of spots to give to an all-arounder, because there's like one or two all-arounders maybe in the US right now that are gonna be competitive to maybe try and make a podium. Like, should Shinnosuke and Jung and Daiki show up in top form, no one is touching them. Like, they're like Daiki and Oka are they're literally like 1.5 to 2 points above everyone else right now. Like, they are not catchable should they show up clean. And so my maybe spicy take with this is that in this individual world championship year, I wonder if maybe they should have had a score cutoff. Like, for instance, maybe athletes should not be able to qualify to the national championships with an all-around score less than 78, especially if they are using the bonus system. And you may be like, oh my God, Kensley, like, no, it's about opportunity, this, that, and the other. Okay, so let me explain why I'm saying this. I know for a fact that several news organizations have approached USA Gymnastics about featuring men on TV, but the main complaint is the length of the competition. This was part of the whole reason why the NCAA went to 4-up-4 count, was to make it fit into a TV box. And allegedly, one of the athlete reps was concerned about lessening opportunities for the men. But I'm not convinced that fighting for a spot at nationals is necessarily about opportunity when USA Gymnastics may not be able to get TV contracts for the men. And so potentially, if this is still the case, if they have not worked out all of their TV arrangements, setting benchmarks might be a good way to go. If the full 48 spots aren't filled, like, so be it, because then it's going to allow for a more compact competition that would be easier to accommodate for a TV package. And for me, at this time, making sure that men's gymnastics is on TV and that it has a wider reach seems more important than filling spots like 42 to 48. Not that those gymnasts aren't incredible, not that they still aren't some of the best in the US, but if you're talking about potentially losing TV contracts, I think something has to be done. And the men's program is already working on this. TV has already had some conversations with them, which is why the finals day, they are actually trimming the numbers down from 48, I want to say, to 42. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to have to go back and look. But that's just a potential solution that I think, instead of saying like, hey, we're going to take 8 or 10 all-arounders in a year where the all-arounder actually is not as important, maybe set the benchmark, because I actually think a lot of people are going to come in under that 78 benchmark and they're just not necessarily going to be viable for that world team this year. So let me know. Do you agree with my spicy take? Do you disagree? And why? A little bit of final news. So recently, my husband and I announced publicly that we are expecting our first child at the end of this year, which means I'll be taking some sort of maternity leave during the first few months of the NCAA season. I don't know what that's going to look like for me. This is the first time I have had a child, so I'm just trying to brainstorm about what that could look like. And I'm experimenting with the idea of having a series of guest hosts for the first 2 to 3 months, whose main job will be to follow and watch the competitions. And then maybe I come on as an interviewer to help the conversation flow and whatnot. And this would allow for less of a load on me to keep up with every detail of every meet, while simultaneously being able to provide varied coverage from other experts and voices in the community. I have heard from some people who've had babies, and they're like, I end up being up all night anyway, like caring for this child that's crying. And actually, I was able to sit and watch a lot more gymnastics. And then I've heard from other people that they are basically so sleep deprived that they cannot follow anything sensibly. So I don't know where I'm going to fall into this realm, but I'm putting out an initial call that if you have any interest in jumping into the world of gymnastics journalism, if you're a former NCAA gymnast who is passionate about keeping this coverage going, or if you're just a really nerdy gym fan who knows the code really well and wants to dialogue about the sport, just send me an intro email at neutraldeductions@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at neutraldeductions. I would love to hear from you. And again, this is not like solidified in order. I'm brainstorming here. If you have ideas of how to keep this coverage going in a meaningful way while also allowing me to rest in a meaningful way that I need to, I would love to hear those ideas as well. Now, all of this coverage is not possible without financial support, and a massive thank you to everyone who continues to donate to keep men's gymnastics coverage alive. These donations genuinely make a difference in producing this product for you. So you can donate via PayPal or Stripe, and those links are in every show note and at the bottom of every article at neutraldeductions.com. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.